Are you looking to buy or build your new home? Well, this is our dream home, and a lot of you subscribers might recognize it because I shoot a lot of videos here. Well, we've been in here for about a year and a half now, and I wanted to share with you some things that I think that you should really consider before making one of the largest single purchases of your lifetime. I call them new home blinders. You've bought your house, you're all excited, you can't wait to decorate it. You're online buying things from everywhere. You're picking colors for your cabinets and your flooring and your countertops. But certain things slip through the cracks. You don't even see them at all because you have the blinders on, or some things you won't even notice until after you've moved in. So that's why I've compiled this list of things that we've noticed, and hopefully it'll help you out in your purchase. Also, if you like this content, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like it, tell me why you don't like it, and don't forget, hit that subscribe button too. So back to the video, but before that, a little bit of a backstory of this house. Our dream home was the show home for the last phase of the development from Foxridge Homes, meaning this is the home people tour through to check out different features and layouts of the homes being built. The biggest bonus of buying a show home is that oftentimes, if the developer is done with the project, the house is often sold as is, and that includes decor and furnishings. And the best part also is that the show home has all the upgrades since they want to showcase these to new buyers. A couple of other bonus features is, even though this house was built about a couple of years before we bought it, the new home warranty doesn't start until after you take possession. And that's a benefit I didn't even think of until after we moved in. Another thing, you don't have to do a lot of house tours when you have guests or family coming over, because most of them have already walked through it already, or they've seen it virtually. On the downside of a show home, it's usually sold as is, meaning you have no choice in terms of layout, color, finishings, flooring, cabinets, and all that fun stuff. So even though we couldn't change it, maybe you can. Luckily, we fell in love with their choices and it fits our lifestyle perfectly. I also have and also want to give Foxridge Homes a big shout out again for not creating a bidding war when we were purchasing this house, and having the integrity to just to do the first come first serve approach, which actually allowed us to be able to purchase this home. I actually slept overnight to be first in line, but that's a whole different story for a different video. Well, let's start right here on the driveway. Well, what is it? It's a driveway. It looks nice. It's got some nice lines to it. Right? Yes. Now, when we bought the place, remember, this was a show home. You couldn't park in the driveway. They had two large planters here because this was the entranceway into the office area. So we didn't know until we moved in that this driveway is, for us, it's way too small. So the dimensions of this driveway are 16 feet wide by 28 feet long. And as you can see here, we have two vehicles parked in here, right? Now, this is to code, but why didn't they make it bigger? Well, because of this, the mighty dollar. It is challenging. I understand this is a business. They have to balance, pinching a few pennies and making a profit. They have to give you value, yet they need to provide a good product. So they kind of have to juggle it around. However, I think in this case, they really went too short. 16 feet just isn't long enough, or wide enough, I should say. Why couldn't they make it as wide as the entrance to the driveway? The entrance is nice and wide, and then it just tapers off. It's not as wide as the garage even. So you'll see here, we have the two cars here, and I have to park them staggered. Why? Well, this one here, so that way, when I open the door, it won't hit the second vehicle. And this one here, I have to park it far enough up so the rear door we can open for the kids to come out. And I even get them to come out there instead of that side because there's not enough room. Not only that, you can't even bring your garbage can down here, garbage day. I actually have to move cars around or drag them over the grass, and we're gonna get to that in a second. Every time I do this, it just really bothers me. To get into our vehicle on this side, we have to actually step in the garden, and not only is it inconvenient. It's not quite safe because of the lip of the driveway, but you get your vehicle all dirty, especially when it's rainy season. And you know what? Here, I'll give you an example. So we just pull into the driveway, we're gonna get out. And you know, if we had an extra foot or so, it would be so much nicer. All right, let's see if we can do this. The reason why we back it in, by the way, is because we live on a busy street, and in the morning it's really busy for school traffic, and it's easier to back in and then drive out. So let's see if I can do it without, nope, can't do it. You know, looking around the neighborhood in the same development, it's actually no surprise how many people I've seen that have widened their driveway, usually with paving stones, some with additional concrete. And it's unfortunate though, because you know what, it's really, really expensive to do. We actually, you know, priced it out. You know, we're talking it's over $10,000 to do, to add a few feet on to the width of your driveway. Whereas if they did it at the start, it would actually be a drop in the bucket. It would be very, very little additional cost to make this driveway wider in the first place. So, you know what, if you have a chance to actually pick a larger driveway, or if you're building your house, hey, make it more than 16 feet wide. Make it at least 20 feet. You hear that? Yeah. That's a sound that you could hear maybe late at night if you had a tenant living in a suite in your house perhaps, but this is a lot of stone. Once again, they basically poured the concrete just for the driveway, and they poured the concrete for the landing pad here for the basement, but in between they added all this stone, and it is terrible. Not only is it loud, it is so irritating. When you have garbage cans, this is empty right now, by the way. I just want to let you know, when it's full, these wheels don't actually roll. You just drag all the weight of this garbage can across the rocks, and it is just really unpleasant. And you can see, this is empty, remember that. So you're doing that, you get your driveway, you can't use the driveway because you have two cars parked there, and you have a full garbage can going down your lawn. How convenient is that? Once again, if they would have actually extended the concrete from pad to driveway, I'm sure it would have probably been a couple $1,000s. But now that it's all done, to redo that or add that concrete in, you're looking at probably over $10,000. So do yourself a favor, once again, if you have the chance, do not put rock on the side of your house. I guess it could be a good deterrent for your teenage kid to sneak out of the basement, because you're definitely gonna hear that. I've talked to a lot of people in the industry and also some realtors, and it seems like it's quite common that developers, not all of them, but most of them, the area they skimp on the most when they're building a development or a property is usually the landscaping, yes. And they do spend the money to make it look good at the time, but you know, at the end of the game is, hey, make it look good so it can sell, but they maybe not be thinking about the future, meaning what kind of plants that they plant, or trees. For instance, a lot of developers like to plant cedar trees. Why? Because they are cheap and they grow fast, so it makes it look really full. However, warning, cedars grow so fast that they could be basically get out of control before you know it, and at that point it's too late to even cut them down without involving the city with permits and things like that. So make sure you're aware of that. And also, if you're buying a new home, one thing that is not covered is landscaping. So they're not going to cover things like this dying shrub or the dead ones we have on the side of the house. You know, I'd be really surprised if they did. However, you know, check with your developer. Some of them may cover some landscaping issues, and it's usually on a case-by-case basis. Another thing to consider is drainage, especially if you're building your own house and you have a choice of what kind of fill to use and how you're going to make this ground drain. Now, this house was the show home, and when we bought it, it was already built 2 years prior to that. And so when we did buy it, it was November, and it was very rainy at that time, and I said, this ground feels really, really squashy, wishy-washy. Like right now, my heels are digging in to it. And, I was told, oh, it's November, it's rainy season, it's been raining for 2 weeks, that's why. Well, fast forward, we have went through 2 complete summers now, and this summer has been, on record, the hottest and driest summer we have ever had, on record. We have had so little rainfall, so you cannot use that excuse. Like, it's crazy how soft this ground is. I've overseeded, I've tried to build up the roots, it doesn't help. And this ground has continually started sinking. So when I bought the house, I was able to mow the lawn without issue, without hitting anything. Now, the ground has dropped so much that a lot of the utility things, like for the water and all these other drains and vents, they all stick up now, and the lawnmower will catch. The blade will actually hit it and wreck my lawnmower. And that's how much it has sank. And also, look at the driveway. It used to be a lot more even, and now we have these massive drop-offs. So part of the reason is it also has to do with drainage, how they did it. And, I've heard from other neighbors that have redone their area, when they actually tore out the lawn, they were pulling out all sorts of interesting things out of their fills, like clothing and stuff like that. So make sure, use good fill, tamp it all down, make sure it's as solid as possible before you build, and you will probably not have problems like this. Like, even look at my in-ground sprinkler system has now become an above-ground sprinkler system. So, look at them, they're all over the place. So yeah, the only way to solve this is I'm gonna have to redo the entire area, bring in more fill, take out all the lawn, and just do it all over from scratch. On this side, well, the drainage is even worse because it actually pools at the top of this landing here where the rocks are, when it's actually supposed to flow down into this drain. But, I'm no civil engineer. So here's the drain here. And it comes from the backyard, but it's not connected to this drain. So maybe this is a sort of a type of drain. I've heard that it might actually just absorb water and everything from things around it. So anyways, this tube here was never ever exposed. It was underground until now because everything has depressed so much. You look at the driveway, it is so exposed in certain areas. You can literally get underneath the concrete, which is not a good thing. You don't want things burrowing in underneath your driveway. And that's another thing about bad drainage and soft ground like this. It's a haven for rodents, for moles. We got so many moles here compared to other yards around here. It's a haven for birds and crows because the stuff that they're trying to get, all the worms and the beetles and stuff, are easy to peck at, and they basically tear up the yard. My neighbor, it was just so bad, he's redoing his whole yard now. And it's like, wouldn't it make sense if his driveway and my driveway, since we're on the same level, they actually were the same level? No, it's not the case. They made this depression here, maybe for drainage. Once again, I am no expert, but yeah, the only way to solve this would be to just redo everything like my neighbor is doing here. Next up, we head into the messy garage. There's a couple things in here I want to show you. This is our garage. It's fine other than one thing that I noticed, and I didn't even notice until months after we had moved in. And that is the floor. You see, we didn't actually park any cars in here. We had, lots of other stuff in here. And yeah, we didn't park inside at all. But then we switched cars and we got an electric car. So we need to put it inside. So in the wintertime, we started parking in here. This is when I noticed something. You'd come in after it snowed or rained, and then you drove out and there'd be a massive puddle of water in the garage. And sometimes if you have a lot of snow and ice on your car built up, it literally almost kind of floods the garage. You have to watch out for what you have on your garage floor. So here is a little bit of a sample here. I'm gonna pour some water from my non-sponsored Home Depot bucket. Okay, that's enough right there. All right, so you'll see this water. Well, yeah, that's fine. It's a puddle. Well, it shouldn't be a puddle. You see, all garages should have a slope to them so the water flows out of the floor, the ground, so it doesn't pool. However, this has an indentation in the middle, so this water will not dissipate. I've checked with other houses around the development, and all of theirs, the next morning it's dry as anything because the water has actually flowed out. Not this one here. You can see it's gonna stay here. It will stay here for days. And I have to basically squeegee it out every time. So the developer knows about this and they said they will correct it. However, the only unfortunate thing is with, I guess, probably labor shortages right now, they were brought to attention this matter over 5 months ago, and it still hasn't been done. And unfortunately, we're getting into the rainy season pretty soon. It's been an amazing year, for the weather-wise, but it's gonna get into the rainy season, and then winter is gonna come, and that's probably not the right time to actually do concrete work when it's cold. Things don't dry or cure as well. So, there's a possibility we might have to live with this for, until the next season. Hopefully, fingers crossed that we can get it fixed beforehand. I'm not sure what they're going to do, but it's probably gonna involve moving all the stuff out of this garage, which I'm not looking forward to. When there's a lot of water, sometimes you actually have to squeegee pretty quick, because if you're too slow, what happens is it'll start flowing back, as you can see it doing now. So you gotta keep on it. It's like whack-a-mole with the squeegee. Maybe I need a bigger squeegee. I don't know. But it's a pain, and it's a safety issue once again. My wife slipped once on it when it was wet already, even after I squeegeed, so that was not a good day. Okay, my wife Cynthia is gonna kill me for showing you our messy garage, but here is another thing that I noticed. It's not a big deal at all. It's not a rant either. It's just that this staircase into the house from the garage is it's all just unpainted, just bare wood. And I looked at other houses from neighbors as well, and everyone's house is the same. I just think it would be nice if they would have just slapped a coat or two of paint on it. It would just look so much more finished. It just, you look in here, it's like, oh, is this house unfinished? No, it's finished, just this one thing. So it kind of sticks out. Hidden amongst life jackets, pressure washers, and scooters in the garage is our electrical panel. Pretty straightforward. Now, this is something we didn't have the option to change, but if we were buying this house as a pre-build, you can opt for a larger service. So this one came standard with 125 amp service, and I highly recommend, like huge, major recommend that if you can, go for something like at least 200 amps for your electrical panel. Reason being is right now we are maxed out. I added a car charger on here, and I even have the car charger turned down so it won't trip any breakers if we're using the dryer, for instance, at the same time as charging the car. So not very convenient, and the only other option to actually get the full use out of some of these chargers would be to replace this, not just the panel, but the service to the house. So you need like a 200 amp cable instead of 125 amp cable, and they got to dig and everything else. Seriously, the job is like quite a few thousands of dollars to do just to get a little bit more power. So if you have the chance, make sure get a larger service for your house. You'll definitely won't regret it. Right now we can't even add things. Let's say if we wanted to add a hot tub, can't do it. No, not at all. And yeah, also check with your jurisdiction. Some places now, I believe when this house was built, the minimum requirement was 125 amp. And now I think in some places around here, I think the minimum is 200 amp now. So you don't even have to worry, if you live in this area, but depending on where you live. But once again, minimum requirement, they're only gonna do what they need to do. That cable from the outside, the box is literally like 10 feet away from here. I'm not sure how much that one cable would cost. I'm not an electrician. I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be in the thousands of dollars as it is now to change it. So yeah, that is a real important thing, everybody. Make sure, get your amperage up. By the way, if you're wondering what kind of charger we installed in our garage, this is the Grizzly. And this is the smart version. It's 50 bucks more. It's actually pretty good. I haven't even used the smart features, but for 50 bucks, why not? And yeah, so we looked around a whole bunch of chargers. This seemed to be the best value. It's super robust. It's all metal. It's, yeah, it's heavy duty. It's made right here in North America, actually in Canada. And it was one of the best deals on Amazon. If you're interested, I'll leave a link in the video description. So far, we're very happy with it. Well, hello, come on in. But before you step in, take your shoes off and check out this door. It's beautiful. It's an 8-foot high door. I love the look of it. It goes with the house really nice. It has this pleating here, the built-in peephole. But one thing I didn't notice until we moved in is that this has a certain type of lock on it. This here is called a mortise lock. And it is different than your standard door handle and deadbolt. You see, if you want to create a smart home environment, which a lot of people do, including myself, where you don't want to carry keys and just operate everything by either voice with, you know, Alexa or Siri, and unlock your door when you come in the house or get close, it's really hard to do with this style of lock, opposed to just a regular deadbolt. That's a real plug and play thing. And so if you can find a lock that will work with a mortise lock, that's one thing. There are a couple out there, they're expensive, but it can be really hard to make work, especially with a door like this. You can see the integration of different points of contact on this door. 3 points of contact. So that's not going to work with a regular smart lock, automated motorized one. You're going to have to essentially replace the entire door if you want to put a smart lock on here. If you're a locksmith and you have a method where I can put a smart lock on this without replacing the door and not cost me thousands of dollars, please give me an email or a message or leave a comment. I'd really like to know what options there are, but as for now, I can't find any, and it's unfortunate because this is our main entry into the house, and it sucks to have to use a key. So come on in. Now, one of my favorite rooms in any house is the kitchen because I cook a lot. There are a few things here that I noticed that maybe it may apply to you, maybe not. Number one is the outlets here for the power outlets. In the kitchen, they are 15 amp breakers. In the kitchen, that's what they call it. Okay, so there is one outlet on the wall in the kitchen right here, and that is only a 10 amp outlet, which to me, that's part of the kitchen, is it not? So the reason why it's an issue for me is because I have my Innova Precision oven. By the way, totally unsponsored, paid for it out of my own pocket. 2 years ago now, this is still hands down the best thing you could buy for your kitchen. We use it every single day, multiple times a day. Whether you cook a lot or not, it just makes amazing food. It sous vides, it air fries, it does everything. Have a complete video on that as well. So with something that we use so often, I wanted to put it against the wall. But every time I use that plug, it would flip the breaker. And so I actually have to put it beside the island here and use the island plug, which is a 15 amp breaker. And because of that, it actually blocks this area, so we can't even walk through here anymore. And I was thinking about, oh, hey, maybe I'll put this into the pantry. And using the pantry, two things. Number one is it still wouldn't be as convenient because we use this so much. We've only used our wall oven, I think, twice, just for a big, massive turkey. That's it. Otherwise, everything else is cooked in that precision cooker right there. And the number two thing is the pantry. Believe it or not, that's my other kind of gripe, is the pantry. It's a big room, but maybe the city classifies it as a closet. I'm not sure, that's what I was told, but there is not a single power outlet in that pantry. There is a light, that's it. So the idea of plugging that in there, not gonna happen. Also, The idea of plugging in anything like a cordless vacuum cleaner, maybe you have a Dyson product or a Roomba, you want to get that out of the way, keep it into the pantry, just grab it in the pantry and use it and put it back there. You can't because there is no power outlet in that pantry. Super, super inconvenient. I know I could probably put one in there myself, but I don't know. Maybe it might be a code thing. I can't see it being that big of a deal for putting a plug in the pantry. Next thing, this here, this is the Venmar Chef series. So I'm kind of spoiled. I came from Sub-Zero Wolf in my previous house. I had a big, humongous range hood with a huge blower. And I thought that was fairly loud, but not compared to this jet engine here. Okay, that's low. Okay, let me get closer here. This is how loud it is. It is so loud. After a couple minutes of it being on, when you turn it off, it's just a sigh of relief. You're like, oh, holy smokes. It is just, it's too loud. So make sure if you have a choice of what goes into your new house, check out what the decibel ratings are, or you can ask your contractor, depending on what style of hood it is, you can get external blower motors and put them on the outside of the house if you have an exterior wall, which is this here. So next time when we do a renovation on this house, one day, this thing is coming out and I'm gonna put an external blower on the outside of the house. So when you turn that fan on, it's gonna be nice and quiet here. This one is just, it's just unbearable to use. I know I sound like a prima donna. Oh, like this, it's bad. It really is bad. When you're cooking, you can't watch TV, you can't entertain and talk to people when you're cooking because it is that loud. So anyways, that's my 2 gripes about this kitchen. Let's move on. This is a true fact. I never thought I would ever do a video sitting on the toilet. Why are we here? This is just kind of one of those odd things too that you don't notice until you actually live in the house. So, what's odd here? Not much. You have a wall, you got a counter, a sink. We'll talk about that faucet in a second, but it is the placement of the toilet paper holder. Seems odd, right? Because, where is it? It's behind me. It's right here. Okay. Now what's odd about it is that it's so far back that you have this large wall here. You could have put it closer to your knees or something, but you kind of have to reach all the way back and almost like dislocate your arm to actually use the toilet paper roll. You know, I understand if it were in a bathroom where you didn't have a wall here, for instance, maybe you have a tub there and you have to use it on the actual vanity itself, that I understand. But when you actually have a complete wall to use and you put it back here, it doesn't make sense. And I know that this is kind of just kind of arbitrarily put there by whoever the workman was that day, because I looked at other houses that are the same floor plan as this, that are friends of ours even, and none of their toilet paper rolls are way back here like that. They're actually kind of over here where they should be. It's sometimes, we had some small kids in here, whatever, they pulled it and it's so close to the toilet itself that when they pulled it, the toilet paper went into the bowl. That's how close it is to the bowl. Solution, I've actually purchased a separate toilet paper roll holder. It actually holds more than one roll, and it actually has a stand so you can put things on it. By the way, I do like how easy it is to change the toilet paper roll here. It's actually quite loose. I gotta tighten that up. But anyways, that is how easy it is. But it's just too close to the toilet. Next up, this is purely more form than function. This is so common and it's very widespread, not in just this house. You'll see it even in IKEA and their sinks. First of all, the sinks are so shallow and the faucet is too far back. It's basically at the back of the sink. So you're lathering it all up and you say, I need water here, not way back here. I'm already hitting the back. I can't get my hands far enough forward, come on. But I guess the most important thing, it looks good, right? I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on this next one because I devoted an entire video on this subject, and that is window coverings, how I didn't know that when you bought a new house or even sometimes a used house, window coverings like drapes and blinds aren't included. And depending on your house, this house has a lot of windows. We covered 32 windows, and that wasn't even all of them. So make sure to put it in your budget for window coverings if you haven't already, because it can cost in the tens of thousands of dollars, depending if you go automated, what kind of blinds you get, blackout blinds, all sorts of different materials and different reasons for getting blinds. It's not just for privacy. So make sure, check out that video as well. I'll leave a link below that. And I will say this again, I said it on that last video. If you have windows that you open often, like on a daily basis, and if they are, maybe they're in a hard area to get to, consider going automated using motorized blinds. We did 3 of them. In hindsight, I wish I would have done more. However, at the time, the budget just didn't afford it. They are not inexpensive at all, but now I wish I had them because it's a pain to go around every day, blip, 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 you know, raising and lowering the blinds, but it can just be done automatically, and it's actually less wear and tear on your blinds themselves by having a motor do it. Before we wrap it all up, let's go through our checklist of things that we covered today. And if you have other recommendations, put them down in the comments. I'd like to know what you think and what other things that you guys come up with. So, number 1, the driveway. Make sure that your driveway is wide enough for not just parking 2 cars, but to actually park them and be able to use the space, to be able to open your doors, not having to step off the driveway to get in or out of your vehicle. So that is very, very important. Next thing we talked about is the landscaping and the drainage. That's gonna be really hard to check actually. You know, if your house has already been built already, you really don't know, but you can at least ask the developer, what kind of fill did they use? You know, are they, you know, what are they on bedrock? Are they on clay? And, you know, just how's the drainage overall? And yeah, you can just make them aware that you are looking at this type of thing. Then we get into the garage, make sure the floor slopes away from the interior of the house, away from the house, down into your driveway. You don't want to have pooling water like we do at all. And then we get to the electrical panel. Hey, if you want to expand or add things to your house later on, like hot tubs or electric chargers for your car, you may not be able to do it if you have too small of a panel. Make sure at least 200 amps, and that's gonna kind of future-proof yourself. And you know, like I said, in a lot of jurisdictions, that's already the minimum, but maybe where you live, it's still 100 or 125. Hey, bump it up to 200. It's well worth it. If you want to automate your house, remember, those mortise locks are really hard to put those smart locks on. You need a special lock and the whole assembly. And in our case, that door with all of those latches down in it, it's pretty well next to impossible. Once again, if you know how to do it, leave a comment below. I would love to get rid of the keys and just use my smart home functions to open that when we get home. Speaking of electrical, check out your kitchen plugs. Do they have enough amperage on the breaker for your appliances that you may want to add into your house, like our Nova oven? Yeah, had no idea until we kept on using it and it was blowing the breaker every time, which really sucked. And apparently it's not as easy as just changing the breaker. It's because it's a gauge of wire they put in. So yeah, what would it have cost to put a proper size wire? When I asked about it, they said, hey, all the kitchen plugs are rated for 15 amps for the breakers. And I'm like, well, how about that one? They like, that's not in the kitchen. That's not in the kitchen, that's in the kitchen. Yes, it's on the wall, but it's not, it's still in the kitchen. All the other kitchen ones are 15 amps, so I don't know why. And then, if you build a pantry or you have a pantry, make sure, put a plug in there. you really want to use that for plugging in your devices, your vacuum cleaners, your power mops. It's so handy to have them there instead of right now we have to put them into the garage. And that's a couple doors to open, everything else in and out of the garage, when it could just be as handy as just going into the pantry. Don't forget your window coverings. Most of the time they're not included. Make sure to put that in your budget and automate them and get it done professionally. That's what I would do. Hood fan. Most people won't ever turn that on until they move into the house, and you won't know that you have F18 with afterburners on high. So if there is an option for different brands or quieter ones, I would definitely take that. Then we get into the bathroom. Yes, it's an arbitrary thing. It's not a massive deal, but hey, it's as simple as just place that holder in an area that's more accessible. And that's not just the toilet paper holder. There's lots of things throughout the house that you may not use when you're doing your looking or your walk around of the house. And it's not until you actually move in where you'll notice, oh, geez, I didn't notice that. So yeah, things like that. And the faucet, well, that's an easy fix, but hey, if you haven't selected it yet and you can change your faucet or sink into something that's more usable, I would do that. Well, there's our little mini tour of our dream house. What did you think? Did you realize some of these things? Well, we didn't. That's why I wanted to share it. This is not meant as a rant for our house or the developer at all. As I said, kudos, thumbs up to Foxridge. I think they do have a lot of integrity. And yeah, these are certain things that were out of our control anyways, but if you have a choice in some of these things, make sure to consider them and make sure if you're looking for a new house, take those new house blinders off so you'll realize certain small little things before you move in. Hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a comment below. I'll try to answer everything that you guys throw at me. Take care.